Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm AndyRC and today I'm going to be taking a look at the Caddx Ratel FPV camera. I've had a lot of requests to check this one out, and this is the 2.1mm lens version, and it's got an ND filter. If you don't know what an ND filter is, it's like putting a pair of sunglasses over the camera's lens, to put it simply, and then the number is the strength of that filter. And I think the reason that they have included that is this is a CMOS camera, and CMOS cameras use a technique called rolling shutter, and if you have a lot of vibrations and a lot of sunlight, then you can get what is called giallo over the picture. So if you reduce the speed of that shutter, you will get less giallo, and that's what an ND filter does. It lets less light into the camera, and that should reduce the shutter speed and you'll get less giallo. So the voltage range is 5 volts to 40 volts, and they're calling this the Starlight camera, so we'll have to see how that performs. Let's take a look at what you get in the package. So we're greeted with a card here that's got Caddx's contact information on there, but it also says worldwide free shipping, 1-year warranty for parts and repair, lifetime free customer support, and you can also download the manual. So I prefer that, really, looking online for the manual. And then this is the camera itself. I should say as well, Caddx have done a pretty good job. It seems like a lot of the bind and fly models now, such as the Emax Buzz, came with a Caddx camera. I think the Turtle comes with a lot of the HD whoops and also Cine Copters that are out there. So they are becoming a reputable brand. We've got a lens protector on here, so it just says Caddx.US, but I do think they are a Chinese company, and it says 2.1mm, and I think it might be a glass lens as well, but don't quote me on that. So the connectors are very similar to the other FPV cameras out there. So we've got the voltage in, and then the ground, and then the video, and then this is how we control the on-screen display. That's not the on-screen display of the quadcopter it plugs into, it's the settings for the camera. So let's see what else we have got in this package. So that just fits over the top like that. Yeah, so you've got the option of not using an ND filter if you don't need it, or that just slides over the top. My only concern would be, I guess, that coming off in a crash and pinging off, but I guess you could use some kind of adhesive if you prefer to use it like that. Let's take a look what else we've got. So we've got the controller board to change the settings. We've got a little mounting board, but I wouldn't recommend using these at all, because the idea is that you have 2 screws underneath there and the camera sits on there, but on a quadcopter that's just going to vibrate like mad. So most quadcopters these days, for example, if we take a look at the HLRC Arrow, which is actually using this same camera but with the 1.6mm lens, you can see that it just connects direct to the copter. And if we just have a look in here as well, so we've got all of our wiring, and we've also got a little Allen key, so we've got little screws as well that screw into the side. Let's see if we have got silicone wires here. I'm hoping so for the price. So yeah, they do feel like silicone wires. So that connects into the controller board there. And then on this end, yes, it's just 3 wires, which I quite like actually, because that is going to solder onto your copter. Or if you have got a fancy flight controller, some of them have this connector ready, so you can just plug it straight in. Yeah, that's silicone wires there. And then you can just leave this plugged in and tuck it into your quadcopter if you change a lot of settings, but that just plugs into there and we can change the settings. So that is everything in the package. I think what I would have liked to have seen, so this is a micro camera, I would have liked to have seen an adapter that converts it to a full-size camera, because a lot of people now are using these micro cameras in their bigger Freestyle builds. But one of the problems that we have is fitting these cameras in there, because they are usually housing a HS1177, which is wider than this. So I think for the price I'd have liked to have seen an adapter board, but so far that is the only issue I can see. Okay, so I fitted the camera to the Lisam Alice X140. It's actually one of my favourite Freestyle models. Very underrated, this model. I'll link to this in the below if you are interested in it. It was originally my idea to have the Firefly 2 camera on the top, but it turned out to be a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be, so it doesn't fit on there. But this is ideal for something like a Split or a Turtle V2, or I had the Mix in this one as well, and I didn't get any vibrations there, so I'm not expecting any vibrations here as well. But it'll be interesting to see the difference between the ND filter and not using the ND filter. But before I do that, let's go through the settings. So this is the settings menu, and on the first option we can go in and change the brightness of the camera. 12 is the default. Then we've got the exposure mode, we've got global backlight compensation. I'm keeping it as globe because it's stock. Then we've got the shutter control, which we can do auto or manual, but I'm keeping it as auto. Then we've got the gain control, which you can do manual or auto as well, but I'm going to keep everything auto as possible. So I'm going to return to the white balance. So we've got auto white balance, but then manual white balance. Again, I'm going to keep it as auto and then return. Then we've got the day and night option. So you can either select it as black and white all of the time for the night vision, or you can select it as color all of the time. So if I go back up there, so black and white or color, and then auto switches between the two depending on the light that it receives. So if we go into image enhance, we've got contrast, which I've got set as auto, but again you can change that manually. Same with the sharpness and the color gain, but again going with auto. Then we've got 3DNR, that is noise reduction. Do you notice as soon as I go into it, we have a noise reduction, and turn it back to auto, we get a bit of noise, so that might be worth playing with there, but I'm going to keep it as auto. Then if we go into the video settings, we can change between PAL and NTSC. The HD format is CVBS. You can't change that, so I'm not sure what that does. Now this is interesting, the image aspect ratio, it's set as 4:3 as default, but I can change it to 16:9. So let's see what happens when I do that. You've got the wide dynamic range, open or closed. I'm going to keep it as open. But if I now go down to save and exit, let's see what happens in 16:9 mode. Just look at that, it's actually cropped the top. So the sensor in this camera must be a 4:3 sensor, which is good if you're using 4:3 goggles, but with 16:9 goggles you're actually going to lose field of view. So if I go back into the video settings and change it back to 4:3 and return, just pay attention to the window at the top left. We've got more field of view, so the sensor must be a 4:3 sensor in this version. And then we've just got the save and exit options. This is what happens when you put the ND filter on. It's enough to change it to black and white, so it's a good demonstration of that. But then I thought, well, when I reviewed the HLRC Arrow 3, the 4:3 option was opposite. I lost field of view when I went to 4:3, so this is the arrow we're looking at, and I'm changing it to 16:9, and watch the props. We've got more props in shot. So that means that if you buy the 1.6mm version of the Ratel, that will be more suitable for a 16:9 goggle, and then the 2.1mm lens actually has a different sized sensor, so it's got a 4:3 sensor. So we've got two options there, one for 4:3 goggle users and one for 16:9 goggle users. So the 1.6mm must have a 16:9 sensor. So this is the first flight that I did with the camera, and this is with the ND filter, and as you can see we aren't getting any giallo whatsoever, and we have got a bright sunny day. Now that is down to the fact that this model is very good, and you can pretty much put any camera on it and it won't get any giallo. Giallo is usually caused by having bad components or damaged components, but I was really happy with the picture. I thought the dynamic range was really good. The only thing that was brought up, and it was actually brought up to me by Caddx because I didn't notice while I was flying. Can you see in the corners of the picture we can see the lens, and it's actually because the lens doesn't have a wide enough aperture to miss all of the sensor, and I'm told that now if you buy the Ratel and the 2.1mm version that they have changed the lens. So if you buy from Banggood or Caddx you'll get the new lens, and this was sort of like an early version of it, so you don't need to worry about that. And if just by some chance you do have this lens and you are not happy with it, they will replace it. So I'm removing the ND filter now and seeing how it performs with that, but it's exactly the same because, as I mentioned, this Copter is great. But as I was talking about earlier, if you have bought one of these cameras and you can see the lens in the corner of the screen and you aren't happy about it, then Caddx have confirmed that if you contact them they will replace the lens for you with the updated one, and you can do that by going to their website, which I will link in the description of this video, but they also have a Facebook group and the contact has been very good. So I think that's a positive thing from Caddx. Their customer service, from my experience, seems to be good. I mean, you could argue it should be because this is more of a premium price. Caddx usually the cheaper brand, but this camera is a premium camera. I have to say though, the corners don't bother me whatsoever. To me, it just shows me that we are maximizing the field of view of the lens, and we just have a little bit of the corner of the lens in shot. I mean, we're not making Hollywood movies with the DVR footage, and we just want to use it for our view of flying. So this is a flight that I did when it had gone dark. Now, it doesn't look completely dark here, but you can see the camera is flicking into its black and white mode, and I'd done that on purpose so I couldn't see the field with my eyes, but the camera was still picking up light. The only regret that I have is that I wish I had changed that noise reduction to manual, because I'm definitely seeing some noise in the lower light, and I think that's what it's for. However, you know, it was still pretty impressive. I didn't think it was going to perform very well in low light, but you can see all of the street lights there and also the road lights. It was almost pitch black, not quite, but I couldn't see the trees in front of me. So yeah, it's actually pretty good as a night camera. Probably not as good as the dedicated night cameras where they are purely black and white, but it was good enough and I was really enjoying these shots. I think it actually did just as well in colour as it did black and white. So I actually picked this time on purpose because I knew it would switch between black and white and colour. So it wasn't quite dark enough to be black and white all of the time, but if I point the camera to the ground, then it won't pick up as much light and it'll turn black and white, and then if I point it to the sky where we've still got a little bit of light, it'll go back to colour, and it does do that seamlessly. We just have a little bit of noise there, like I say, so I would adjust that manual setting if I was using this camera specifically for night flying, which I'm not going to be doing anyways. You know, it takes around about 9:30 at the moment to get complete darkness, because we are approaching the summer, which I'm excited about. So the night flying thing is really a winter thing rather than a summer thing. But yeah, I was impressed with this camera. I don't really have any complaints about it, and I'm getting some nice views there. You can't get those kind of views even from a GoPro, because they don't do the low light thing very well unless you start messing around removing the IR block and stuff like that. I think it's important though to take away that if you buy the 1.6mm version, then you're going to get a 16:9 sensor that is going to crop in 4:3, and if you buy the 2.1mm lens version, then it's got a 4:3 sensor and it's actually gonna crop the top off, so you'll lose field of view there. So in short, 2.1mm lens version for 4:3 goggles and 1.6mm lens version for 16:9 goggles. So there is my review of the Ratel. Thank you for watching, and as always, please continue to subscribe. Cheers.